I would like to welcome everyone here this evening for our regularly scheduled Tuesday evening City Commission meeting. Our first order of business, let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to take just a slight detour here. I would like to introduce a new item of exciting business, and we have to have a motion for that.
I would make the motion that we add whatever it is you're talking about to the agenda.
We're going to keep it secretive, okay?
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Chris Toohey is going to be our guest, and he's going to introduce our new item of business.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners, City staff, and citizens of Newton. My name is Chris Toohey. I am a regional manager with Kemper Sports. I've had the distinct honor of being the manager at Sand Creek Station since July 1st, 2006, when we opened. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to discuss this opportunity that literally lays on our community's altar to host what I think is one of the most notorious and filled void opportunities in golf, that to the credit of the United States Golf Association for starting this event last year. The USGA is the 700-pound gorilla in golf. They are the what I call the masters of championships. They're best in class in everything that they do. We had the honor in 2014 of hosting the 89th and last ever U.S. Amateur Public Links. Many of you all were part of that. To host a USGA championship is truly an honor. To have the opportunity to host 2 USGA championships is a lottery ticket. And I really mean it when I say that this championship is going to change lives. It's going to change lives for players. It's going to change lives for our community. It's going to change lives for our company and Kemper Sports. And we can't thank the United States Golf Association enough for giving us this opportunity and to follow in the footsteps of Pinehurst, I might add. This tournament started last year, as I had mentioned before, at Pinehurst number 6, which Pinehurst is one of the most world-renowned resorts that has hosted U.S. Opens. Truly is a destination for people, commuters that travel from all 4 corners of the world to play this venue. And they will host the second Adaptive Open this year. So how did we get selected? Rather than hear me, I am going to talk a little bit about that, but I would like to introduce Greg Sanfilippo with the United States Golf Association, who just beat the weather out of Newark. Is that correct? Hundreds of flights, I guess, got canceled with storms, but he said he was delayed multiple times, but he wanted to be here tonight. And I know that Greg wants to share a little bit more about this championship. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Greg Sanfilippo with the United States Golf Association. Thank you.
Chris, that was really well said. I can just cross off all my talking points now. This might actually speed up my pace of play. Mayor, Council, thank you guys for having me here and to discuss this awesome opportunity. And, you know, we wanted to talk, Chris covered it, this is a brand new championship for the United States Golf Association. But this has been a missing void for over 50 to 75 years for the adaptive community. And a lot of you may know that adaptive golf is growing, not even in the United States, but worldwide. The RNA, the Royal and Ancient, have just started their own Golfers for Disabilities Open, which they just started probably about 3 months ago. So it is trending. We have AGAs, our state and regional golf associations, now running their own adaptive clinics just due to the inspiration that the Adaptive Open has created. You will start to see more Adaptive Open championships. More frequently, the Indiana Golf Association announced that they're going to run an Indiana Adaptive Open. Florida State Golf Association is also going to run the Florida Golf Adaptive Open Championship. So to Chris's point, it's inspiring. But the reason why the USGA started this, and we put a number of these items here on the slide, but really was to be welcoming and inclusive of all these players of disabilities. You think about all these players who've been competing haven't had the opportunity to do so at the national level. So we talk about serve, and we serve the game of golf. That was the USGA. We started talking about the Adaptive Open Championship and running one in 2017. It was diverted by COVID, and in 2021, in December of 2021, we announced that we are going to host it in Pinehurst in July in 2022. So we wanted to serve this environment. We also wanted to inspire the golf community. As I've just kind of mentioned, we do have more individuals that are within our realms starting to showcase adaptive golf, but also to inspire volunteers, inspire more people to really get an understanding of adaptive golf is capable, and inspire young men and women to come to these championships to see this, how big this actually can be. So, you know, talking a little bit about showcasing, again, it's showcasing the players, but it's also showcasing the community. It's showcasing what these players can do and how instrumental it can be to come to the U.S. Adaptive Open Championship. The last word I have up there is around the country. Our intent is to take this around the country to expose this championship to as many players, people, volunteers as we possibly can, and we're going to continue to try and do that. Hence one of the reasons why we're here today. So first off, we have 96 players, men and women. So we restrict at least 20 women, a mandatory 20 women for a field that is a total field of 96. We have 8 impairment categories that actually allow seated players to compete, arm impairments, leg impairments, short stature, visually impaired individuals, all to compete on one golf course from separate tees, but all during one championship, which is a very unique opportunity for both the men and women to compete for a national championship trophy, which they've never had before here in the United States. Chris, you're going to talk about the volunteer opportunities, and you can introduce the video, but I do want to say a couple quick things around Sand Creek Station, the City of Newton, and the player experience. You know, we are here because we have a good partnership here. We've been here, we've done this, and the player experience, our relationships for the last 10 years, almost a decade, will prove that we will have an awesome championship here, should we be able to do that here in 2024. So with that, there are many volunteer opportunities, and I'll bring Chris back up to talk about those.
Greg, thank you again so very much for making the trip. So, you know, in talking to Greg and the USGA, you know, as far as the number of volunteers that we would probably need, I mean, it's going to be a few hundred. I can't imagine that being a problem. To be part of history, to be part of watching these incredible men and women who, you know, what they deal with every day of their lives, and to compete and to have this opportunity, and just, I think, to be inspired to be part of this championship, I personally think it's going to be an easy sell. And I think that was evident in the numbers that we saw with the volunteer base in 2014. What can I do is what probably we're going to start getting if we're able to get to this next level. I'm going to get a lot of phone calls, and you know, my answer to that is we'll find you something to do. You don't have to know anything about golf. You want to be part of this championship, we'll find something for you to do. And don't worry, we got my eye out on you there, Commissioner Valentine. But I will, you know, just in talking to Greg, I know that he said at Pinehurst, he said that volunteers just wanted to continue to work shifts and pull doubles and wanted to be part of this championship, and it changed their lives. I'll stand by what I said. I do think that, you know, to have this opportunity to host another USGA championship is just only going to leverage this community. It only is going to build on the brand, and it's going to build on our brand at Kemper Sports. We know we're very excited about this opportunity as well. So I do believe there is a slide that is embedded into the deck.
If you're ready for the video?
I believe so.
Okay.
So we thought, and thank you, Greg, for this video. We really thought that it would be great to give you all a snapshot of some of the competitors and their stories. You know, what else could be more compelling? So, Kelly, thank you so much.
You're going to look at the camera.
What one?
The big one. That
Okay.
one.
Like that. Randy Shack, East Texas.
I'm Judy Brush.
My name is Grace Ann Braxton, and I have an intellectual disability.
I was born without hands.
I'm Ken Green. I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida.
I'm from Sweden. I have achondroplasia.
My name is Imi Pakisati.
I am legally blind.
We built this championship to be inclusive and welcoming. Now players in the adaptive community will have something to reach for that is a national championship.
It gets me pretty emotional. I think about my grandfather and know that he would be proud.
I'd like to encourage other people to realize that they too can do what I do.
I just try to push myself to be the best I can at what I have.
It's just like being in a professional golf tournament, doing the same thing like they do.
We have a major championship.
Go! One better on every hole.
Let's keep going.
Are you happy?
Yeah,
How much?
like way up in the sky.
Just honored to be in the same breath as the greats of Annika and Tiger, and Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus.
You were able to pull yourself out of that hole that life gave you. And then you went on to do something really good. You can't ask for anything more than that. You've won both sides of the game, life and golf.
Kind of moves you. You know, there's a lot of stories, and it's just amazing to have the opportunity to host this championship. So I certainly stand for any questions.
I think it calls for a cheer.
Me too.
I think, Chris, if I may, just to put it out there for those who might be listening on the recording or the public who might not have some more background on this, is that this Sand Creek Station would be hosting in 2024, and it would be the second weekish of July, just right after the 4th of July holiday. However, USGA staff would be in town mid to end of June-ish to kind of do a lot of setup. And there are going to be some changes to the course, and so that will affect some of the players and some of the routine tournaments that we do have, and like men's and women's leagues, and you know, some of the rotating kind of events that we have. However, we just know that these people will be so supportive, and we will appreciate their ongoing support of this as we continue to make those tiny tweaks. And it will only be for a very short time that the course would be restricted and those kinds of items. So if you all have any other questions for Chris or for Mr. Gregg, I mean, this is a huge honor for us to have been selected. I mean, this has only happened once at Pinehurst, and it's happening again 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks-ish, the 10th through 12th of July at Pinehurst again. And so we will be the first course after Pinehurst to ever host such a prestigious event. And we're incredibly honored to be selected. And there will be opportunities for volunteers, as Chris and Greg noted, and there will also be opportunities if someone wants to make some donations. We're going to have a fund set up through the Community Foundation. Upcoming, we'll get that information out to the public that will support the players and the tournament itself, and so we would appreciate the community's support.
So do you have an agenda or an itinerary laid out for each of those days yet, or is that still infant in the planning?
Well, Greg might want to chime in as well. I would think that there's probably a framework, and I would think that what I really enjoyed about working with the USGA is, you know, the core fundamentals are infused in every championship, but I think the USGA believes that every championship should have its own identity and its own experience. And would say that, you know, the agenda probably flows with like the banquet dinner, players dinner, and the, other social functions, but I think as far as what's included in those, I think that's when it really gets fun. And I think that's when it's really, you can make your mark. Did I answer that correctly?
So you'll be keeping us abreast of when that gets pretty solid in the planning, and then we'll know what the volunteer opportunities are as you move along.
So let me answer it this way. If the commission votes to approve this tonight, the work begins tomorrow morning.
Not tonight.
And
I'm going to start making phone calls
actually, I was going to say,
tonight.
actually, it will begin tonight for most of us. But there will be, to Chris's point, there will be some events for the players, and they're also. This is a unique tournament because most of these individuals will need to have either a caddy or and every single one of them, Greg, if I say this wrong, correct me, please. But every single one of them will have either some kind of support staff with them, and or they will have their own official with them. And so this is not like your normal tournament where you're kind of out there on your own. There's going to be a whole bunch of additional people in our community. And so it will be interesting to see how that goes. We will have practice rounds, we will have the actual tournament events, and as Chris just noted, we'll have player events, and you guys will all be intricately involved in all of that.
No doubt.
Maybe that's when I'll learn how.
So I mean, like for going back to 2014, like I know that we did a family barbecue. We did it actually just at the Cart Building, and we had a lot of compliments on that. And it said, it's not just for the players, it's for those the unsung heroes that are making the travel and making the commitment with time and with the financials. Mayor.
Yeah, for those of us that maybe are a little more visual or can relate to kind of logistically what that will look like around the facility, and Greg, maybe you can speak to this, what temporary structures might there need to be put up and what for, and those types of things, just for people to kind of visualize what that might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we probably have to start the build similar to Pinehurst, which was just at the end of June. But you're thinking about tenant structures so that we could probably put more so player hospitality areas together. The build here at Sand Creek Station is going to be completely different than Pinehurst because you have more structures. We're actually dealing with no clubhouse, no infrastructure at Pinehurst right now. So there will be a few tent structures that have to go up, and permitting and fire coding, ADA specifications. A lot of that stuff we'll be working with the course on, but also our USJ staff leadership would be on there. In addition to that, we're going to need all golf carts, additional golf carts for all the players in the field and the referees. To Kelly's point, you're going to have upwards of 300, 350 people, and then that's not even including volunteers. So additional portalettes, additional restrooms, and I would look at it like there's the U.S. Open of golf, there's the U.S. Open of women golf. This is going to be the U.S. Open for adaptive golf, and we're going to have to build some structures such as a player hospitality area, possibly a volunteer area, possibly a merchandise area, and things to that effect. But that would probably start towards the end of June to get permitting, get everything approved, and et cetera. So, and you saw some of that in the video. A lot of that was all built. That was not infrastructure inside Pinehurst. Hope that answers.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Well, if there are no more questions at the bench at this time or comments,
what about our capital financial outlay, keeping the community whole on this investment and everything? Can you
great
speak
question.
to that?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I believe that, as I mentioned, we're going to have some donation opportunities available through the Community Foundation, which is amazing because it goes not just to the city, but it goes towards the tournament, towards the players and the actual event. And it's a tax write-off donation that you can make. And we will get that information out to the public soon, but we anticipate that's around $200,000 on the city side, $250,000. And I believe USGA is putting in about $950-ish thousand. I mean, and it may go up and down depending on what they find when they have to actually come in and look at the course and what, like if we need additional ADA restrooms and those kinds of things. So we are very much hopeful that the community will step up and support the cause and the players, because this isn't about the city or city-sponsored event. This is about the golfers.
If I may speak on that, Commissioner Stennett, what I would say is the USGA is, and I'm not going to quote on a dollar amount, but what I will tell you is, and I feel comfortable saying this with Greg, the USGA puts a pretty hefty financial commitment in this championship. Looking at the numbers, Kelly mentioned the potential obligation from the financial space, but there's opportunities to retain revenue as well. I mean, there's championship merchandise. We are going to knock on doors and ask for donations. We do think, given this audience, we think it's going to be very well received. I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit here and say I'm going to sleep at night thinking that we can make this a very palatable championship from a financial space. And I do think that the dividends that will be paid in the long run, even if it is a $50,000 obligation, I just think it pays for itself many times over for many years to come. So I would say, and it's a fair question, and it's a question that I was expecting. I would not be here tonight. I wouldn't be presenting this championship if I didn't feel we could achieve it. Also from the financial space.
Yeah.
And golf courses' finances can support this event if something was found lacking?
Golf course is in a good position right now.
Yep. We can. And then also I would note, Chris didn't mention it, but in the past, we have also been very fortunate to receive several grant opportunities to apply for through Department of Commerce and through Department of Ag and through Department of Wildlife and Game that sponsor these particular kinds of events, as long as you can prove the return on the investment for the community. And think about the number of players that are going to come in, the hotel room nights, the dining they're going to do, the fuel they're going to buy as they travel in and out. So I think I agree with Chris. We're in a very good position to do some serious fundraising and knocking on doors and advertising, but also I feel we're in a very good financial position to go and make those asks from our partners at the state as well.
One more question for Greg is at Pinehurst. I know we're in a different part of the country here, but what was that like, or what is that like at Pinehurst with the donation opportunities for people?
To be honest with you, Pinehurst did not even start a fundraising opportunity for this event. It was just something that they put into their capital gain. So it wasn't really something that they went after. More so their costs were from volunteers. They cut off at 400 volunteers.
That's a lot of shirts.
Exactly. It's
They had to turn them away.
merchandise that you had to pay for all the volunteers. They had to cut it off. But there were people coming from all over the country to come volunteer at this event, including folks from the adaptive community, which is great.
And there's sponsorships available for local sponsors, not just big guns?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. But yes, Pinehurst did not take that approach. That's not, from a USGA side of things, we see that often at clubs too, where that's just not their approach. They just don't want so much funding to realize or have to deal with that, manage it, et cetera. And in terms of that, it's fair to say that the fundraising efforts of the club or of the city, we are able to reciprocate by showing, a supporters board, but we can't be naming, the player hospitality tent by, X, Y, and Z, because that might be owned to Deloitte, one of our corporate supporters as well. So, different approach, Pinehurst.
And this is different a little bit too. I might note, to Greg's point, remember Pinehurst is a private country club and we're a municipal course. And so we are publicly operating and funding. And so that's one of the unique challenges and differences and opportunities that we have. Yeah. And again,
they're a resort.
They are a resort, yeah. So their funding mechanisms are different than ours. That's not good, bad, it just is different. And we're just very, very honored to have been sought out.
And I think that's actually one of the better things, because more people will be involved, more people can get involved, and more people can be active. within the championship, which I think is very, very cool thing. As we continue to move forward with this championship, it's only going to continue to grow. We've invested a lot of money into this championship, a lot of staff, and we are treating it like the U.S. Open, Women's Open of adaptive golf. So.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments here? And then we'll move on to the business side.
I think it's a real tribute to, our relationship with Chris and James
And Kemper Sports.
and Kemper Sports. That
Absolutely.
I mean, what an honor to be able to. I mean, just to have somebody even think about you for 5 minutes. Nonetheless, come and ask you to host a championship. I mean, that's about as cool as it gets.
Yeah.
Is it televised this year?
It is not. Golf Channel's committed to covering it. I believe it's like 3 hours per day on just like live from coverage, and that's consistent with what they did last year. What happens is if Golf Channel stuff doesn't happen until we know anything until 2024.
Right.
But I can think that you'll see a commitment from them to continue to cover this championship as long as we continue to do it right.
Wow, that's good.
Very nice.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there are no more questions from the bench, there is another item of business you would need to take up, which is to adopt the contract that is before you, to agree to the terms, and I would defer to Chris if you wanted to speak to that contract.
Yeah, and I can
sir.
defer to Chris too. Most of the provisions in the contract are the logistical requirements on both ends. I do have copies of the agreement for anyone in the public that would like to see it. It has been approved. Chris has reviewed it, staff has reviewed it, I have reviewed it from the legal side and feel comfortable with the terms that's available. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the provisions of the agreement, but the mutual promises to essentially put on a good event.
No, I mean, I think it's, and I appreciated what you said. I think it's pretty standard. I don't think there's anything in there that's, overly concerning. I think that, obviously it's a best-in-class event. This is a true partnership. And I'll go back to what happened in 2014. We had a fantastic relationship with the USGA. If there were any, and I can't even think of any roadblocks that we came to that were nothing more than a 60-second conversation. So I feel very comfortable. I feel very comfortable with this agreement.
Going to be a good partnership.
Do we need to take up another new item of business, or did the original one cover this contract part?
I think you should, just a new item to take up and consider the agreement. I'll pass it out as you're doing that, and then it would be a formal motion to approve the agreement.
I'll make a motion to take up a new item of business.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is approved.
Thank you.
Is it the same as what we received?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Same one as this year. Anyone like one? No.
And so, Mayor, we would need an additional item to approve the contract if someone should so move.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract.
I will second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, opposed? It is
You
passed.
go with Rod. Just go with Rod. We both said it at the same time.
You probably
We
had
got a second
3
and a third
seconds.
then. We're good.
Thank you all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Newton.
We're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, and that is we're going to consider the minutes of the June 13, 2023 meeting.
I move for approval.
I will second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is passed. Item number 2, we're going to receive a request to close Athletic Park Circle on August the 12th, 2023 from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the BNSF Family Day. Denise?
Yes, staff has reviewed this request and is okay with that. They would recommend approval of the closing of Athletic Park Circle for that date.
I would move that we approve that request.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is passed. Item number 3, we're going to receive a request to close the 6th Street parking lot on August 23, 2023 from 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for the Gathering Church Splash Sunday. Denise.
Yes, this is an annual event that the Gathering Church has, and they are requesting just to close the parking lot behind the church there on the 6th Street parking lot, and staff has reviewed this and would recommend approval.
I would move for approval of their request.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is passed.
Right. Mayor, if you would mind standing by for just one moment, we need to get a signed copy of the contract, please, for USJ real quick, and then we will move on, and they can get on with their evening as well, because I believe they need to travel home.
You
this
mean
evening,
they
so-
want to walk out of here with a signed contract?
I believe so.
I cannot imagine
I believe
such a
so, yeah. And also, I think we might want to get a picture if we could. Yeah, Mayor, after you sign, if y'all want to come down here, we'll get a picture of you and Mr. Gregg and Chris and excuse me for overlooking that. I apologize, because I know they had mentioned this to me earlier, so.
You want all of us?
If you don't mind, that would be wonderful. This is a pretty big historic event, if you don't mind, so.
Yeah, I'm sending it back.
Yeah, tomorrow?
10 a.m. Central Time.
Yeah, 10 a.m. Central. Yeah, and Mr. Gregg just reminded me that this actually will be formally announced tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time at the current event, right? This year's event, or through the USGA?
Yeah, through USGA.
Yep, there's a press release that will go out, and so this will be publicly announced tomorrow, and we're pretty pleased to have the little sneak peek event, so.
All right, everybody ready? All right, thank you. Got it, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
We're very excited. All right, Mr. Mayor, moving on with more traditional Stoic business.
Okay, general obligation bonds, Series 2023. Donna.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. We are coming to the end of our 2023 issuance of the bonds. This should have been done in '22, but everything progressing so slow with supplies and contractors and stuff, so we're finally getting it done. Bonds were sold this morning at 9:45. We had 4 bidders. Our partners, our financial advisors, Baker Tilly. This is one of the directors, Ben Hart, and he's going to explain to you exactly what happened this morning.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. Ben Hart, I work out of Kansas City, specifically out of Olathe, Kansas. We sold $4.1 million in GEO bonds this morning. They're structured over 20 years, as you may or may not know. The 4 uses were water improvements, street improvements, airport improvements, and benefit district projects. The offering document, which we call an official statement, was offered to the public through various platforms online. It's made available for the investing public, both institutional, retail investors. The bids were offered on a competitive platform. It's called IPREO. It's one place where all the investors come to actually bid, usually institutional investors, bid on municipal bonds. And we see a high volume going through there. Like Donna said, we received four bids. There were four firms or banks that registered to provide bids. Robert Baird at 3.72%, TD Securities at 3.78%, Stifel Nicholas 3.83%, and Northland Securities at 3.85%. The low bidder was Robert Baird at 3.72%. It included a premium. So what that premium is basically buying the right to future interest rates that are a little higher. What that allows them to do is pay us, the city, and allows us to decrease the amount of debt that we issue for you guys. So that was a huge benefit by decreasing that debt. It's around $200,000 that they paid up front for that rate. Baird represented 27 different banks, most of them Kansas and the regional banks within the Midwest that had a chunk of these bonds. At AA minus, there were obviously great credit bonds, and that's what your guys' rate is AA minus. The S&P, the Standard & Poor's Global, Donna went through a rating call with us, and they reaffirmed the AA minus on all bonds, including this one. And some of the comments they made were adequate budgetary performance, and really that's centered around conservative operating assumptions and long history of positive results within your budget itself. Good financial policies and procedures based on long-term financial and capital plans, investments and debt management policies. You've got a lot of good policies in place. A lot of times we don't see most of those in place, and you've got them there. That's really good. One of the comments they made within that rating was weak debt, but it's mitigated by rapid amortization. Weak debt meaning an elevated debt level. I don't think we have a client that doesn't have an elevated debt level, especially in today and day and age. But what we do see is that rapid amortization. So that kind of cancels that weak debt out. So with that, our recommendation is to award the bonds to Robert W. Baird and Company at 3.72%. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You're going to be doing 3 different things this evening. The first one would be to receive and award the bids.
I would move that we receive and award the General Obligation Bond Series 2023-A to the highest bidder. Lowest bidder. Best bidder.
Best bidder, right.
I will second to the lowest bidder.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
The next thing you'll be doing is an ordinance authorizing and providing for the issuance of the General Obligation Bond Series 2023A.
That number would be 5124-23.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 5124-23.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second.
My turn. I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes.
And the last thing to do is consider a resolution prescribing the form and details of and authorizing and directing the sale and delivery of GO Bond Series 2023A.
That ordinance or resolution number would be G1314.
Well, I will move that we approve Resolution G1314.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Item number 5, Planning Commission. Suzanne. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioners. Before you this evening is a final plat for Sand Creek Station 5th Edition. This was received by the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and actually it was 2 meetings ago, I believe, and all of the information has been turned in. Their drainage plan and all items have been addressed. Staff is in favor of approval, and the Planning Commission approved this unanimously. This is a plat that is located on the northwest corner of 24th and Anderson. This is the lower corner, if you will, of the golf course housing addition. I think we may have a couple pictures there on the screen. This brings several residential lots into existence once the final plat is approved. And this is in an R3 zoning district, but we are anticipating single-family homes.
I think we've got about 72 to 75 lots total-ish.
Yes. And we would need you to receive the plat this evening and then consider approval.
Well, I would move that we receive the recommendation from the Planning Commission for this final plat.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. And to consider the approval.
I move we approve the final plat.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Item number 6, we're going to consider an ordinance amending Chapter 6 regarding building and construction permit fees. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners, at a recent budget work session, we discussed an increase in building permit fees due to the rising costs of staff and equipment associated with those inspections. You reviewed a 10%, 15%, and 20% increase, and we have provided for you this evening, and I believe this was just updated. We had a slight error in the chart that was in the ordinance, and we have a 15% increase that is shown. Based on 2022 construction values, this would generate approximately $29,000 to $30,000 of revenue per year, an increase of that. We also provided on the very last sheet of the information in the packet regarding this item, we took some, we polled some of the neighboring communities. This were those permit fees in these other communities as of March of this year. And the 15% you'll notice for Newton is shown here at the construction values of $510,000 and $50,000, and then a $3 million project is shown as well. And you can see that with that 15% increase, we would fall about in the middle of the group that has been polled. And so if you're wanting to move forward this evening, we would ask that you consider an ordinance that would amend this chapter of the code. Pardon?
Do I have something for this? I'm sorry.
I don't think so.
There's a last right by the ones you need.
Do we have what's the ordinance number?
Yeah, sure. 5125-23.
I'd make a motion that we approve 5125-23.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Item number 7, we're going to receive plans and specifications for the Southeast 4th Street reinforced concrete box and street improvements, and set the date and time to receive the bids.
Yes, Commissioners, in April of 2022, at a City Commission meeting, we explained the problems with the existing box culvert that is on Slate Creek on Southeast 4th Street. It is in need of replacement at this point in time, and you directed staff to move forward with the design process, and we've got all the permits and plans are ready to go. We held an open house, a come and go open house with all of those adjacent property owners along this piece of roadway. You notice on the screen that Slate Creek is crossing Southeast 4th Street, and the box structure is shown there in green. There's a little storm sewer as well. And along with this project, not only would we be replacing that reinforced concrete box, but we would also be replacing a water line that is through here, and reconstructing the pavement that is on this street from Walnut to South Kansas Avenue. It is in disrepair, and all of these items need to be done at the same time. And so you have a lot of details I won't go into unless you would like me to, or you have questions regarding the specific items and quantities that would be a part of the construction drawings. And if you are ready to move forward with the project, we would put the project out for competitive bids, and that will go out this week, and there would be a bid letting scheduled for August 1st. And then we bring the bids back to you at your regular meeting in August, unless we have to alter that date for some reason during the bidding process. And assuming that the project goes well, the bidding process goes well, and you're able to award bids that evening, we would expect construction to begin in October. Understanding that when we go through the bidding process, typically we do hear from a lot of the contractors, and we may hear some information about materials and lag time, and we may have to adjust that schedule slightly, but we would let you know that at a later date when we bring back the bids. The project is going to likely be built in 2 phases, one for the culvert removal and replacement, and then the second would be for the water line and the street paving. Staff will be working with the contractor, and there would be notifications that'll be sent out to all of those adjacent property owners. We have already sent out an additional notice to them because we had to delay us bringing this item back to you because we had some design difficulties due to the skew of the box on the creek. But the total cost of this project, including design, construction of materials, and inspection, is estimated at the $1.365 million. The project would be bonded with an annual debt service payment that's going to be paid out of the water, the sewer, and the general fund accounts. The sewer would be for the drainage portion. Remember, drainage improvements are paid out of our sewer fund. And so a bonding resolution would be considered at your July 11th meeting. If you approve us moving forward, we'll bring that bonding resolution to you for consideration. If you don't have any other questions, then I would suggest that you receive plans and then set the bid date as suggested, and we would move forward with the project.
I would move we receive the plans and specs for the reinforced concrete box and street improvements, and set the bid date at the suggested date.
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Item number 8, we're going to consider a school resource officer agreement with Newton Unified School District 373. Chris and Chief.
I can kick it off and then throw it over to Chief. This is that. It's an agreement with the USD for the city's school resource officer program, SRO. These are specially trained Newton PD officers that are on campus that make special efforts to prevent violence, drug use, reduce crime. It's a great program. It's been in place since 1998. We need an agreement with the school district to have an understanding of the terms. There are certain school record and privacy laws that we want to make sure are addressed in writing, as well as just the relationship of the parties and responsibilities. There is a financial component to the agreement whereby the USD will contribute $105,000 per year to offset certain city personnel costs with the program. It's set up for a 1-year term auto renewal whereby either party can cancel with 30 days notice for any reason at all. I'll stand for any questions and also hand it off to Chief to kind of talk greater depth on the program.
Go ahead. You may answer my question before I speak, so go ahead.
No, we've had this program in place a number of years now. Did it stop?
I don't think so.
How about now?
No.
No.
You can have one. We'll take it.
You really don't want me to speak anyway. Well, we've had this program for a number of years now, and we haven't really, expectations are paramount to success for any program. And turnover in staff, both in our department and with the school districts, having those expectations, they weren't readily available or identified every year. So we kind of put a mechanism in there that we can readdress this every year. So lay out these expectations, air out our differences, come to an agreement, because it's all about the kids at this point. And that's where our primary focus is. And we, in my team, we reevaluate every year. We reevaluate all the time. How do we better serve our community? Where are our deficiencies? Where can we enhance some of our priorities? And obviously, our kids are our priority at best. We have, I moved, with our team, we identified a shortcoming where we have our 3 SROs, and they are a resource for all of our kids from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. We've now moved an investigator just dedicated just for school-age kids. So there'll be a 4th officer. That officer will be in and out of the buildings, and that will free up the school resource officers to have more dedicated time into the schools, that they're not taken away to do interviews or other special projects. This officer, they'll spread that wealth out, so we'll spend more time in the schools. We'll still spend more time with the kids as needed at all grades. There's still not enough of us to go around because we still have, what is it, the 7 schools now. And only 3 school resources. So we're spreading out their geographical assignments. We have an officer for a middle school and elementary schools, and we have an officer just dedicated for the high school, and then vice versa. And it's geographical, so depending on what side of the town that they're in. So, and we also, we step into St. Mary's and also the Newton Bible, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So we try to step into all the schools that are under the USD 373.
You didn't answer my question, but this was my question. I had this conversation probably a year or two ago with one of the school board members. And when have we increased that 35,000 per year at all, or has it always been 35, or how long has it been the 35,000? I don't feel like that's enough, but that's what I'm wondering. I'm very supportive of the program.
Sure.
But just from our perspective, I don't feel like it's an equal payback to what
When
we
when we initially started this program, we only had 1 school resource officer, and it was paid out at $25,000 per year for that officer.
Yeah.
And that number hasn't increased, but we've increased the officers. So each one of those officers they paid, the school district contributed $25,000. This is the first year, and in talking to other staff, we felt like because of the cost of the officers, because that didn't even make even half, and that's how it was initially was brought to, is that the city would contribute half of the officers' pay, and then the school district would contribute half the officers' pay. Well, that's no longer the case. Even at $35,000, that's still not, per officer is still not half of what the city contributes to the
So that was going to be my
officers'
next
pay.
question is like, what is, with benefits and salary, what is the cost of one officer? And I understand it's different probably based off of time, but on average, I mean, is it 90,000 or
It's about 84,000.
about 84,000? So
At the lowest.
if,
the lowest end.
and if school is in session, they're in the school, correct? Unless
That's correct.
they're directed to go somewhere else by your call.
Yes.
But, so outside of, I mean, it would be Christmas break, spring break, trying to think of when they have those longer periods of time off, and then summer months.
Right.
But they're not working any other shifts outside. If a normal school week, Monday through Friday, is 8 to 3:30 roughly, they're working in the school. They're not working on the streets after that 3:30 or running a beat or anything like that. Is that right?
Not during school session, that's
Right.
correct. They're just dedicated to the school.
Yeah.
And now, and then they also go to after-school functions. They're always,
Correct.
they go to the football games, the basketball games, the volleyball games. They try to meet all
And then
those after school.
so do we, next question, I guess, then with that is that, do we pay them overtime then if they exceed their hours?
Yes, we do at times, yes.
So I don't think, I mean, to the commissioners, I don't think the 35,000 is enough based off of what we end up paying out of pocket, and they provide the bulk of their time to the school district. I'm supportive of the program and I want to approve it, but what I would like to see us do maybe, and I don't know if we have to approve this tonight, is just to say, if we broke down maybe a little bit of how much hours did any of those officers, Little John or whoever was SROs last year, how many hours did they work and how much did they get paid in overtime? And because I just don't think I feel like we give a lot to the school district to begin with. And so I feel like this is another area that we can.
Sure.
And 35,000 just doesn't seem like enough per an officer.
I can bring that back to you. They're, because we track all of our time.
Yeah.
And where that time is spent. So I just don't have that at my
So when did, so we
fingertips
went
now.
25,000 first. When did we increase to the 35? Do you remember?
This will be the first year
This will
that
be the
we've
first year.
increased.
Okay, yeah. So this is more than what we were getting last year per an officer?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
Baby steps
42%.
at this point.
So has the school district approved this, or are we approving it first?
They did a first read yesterday. They would be set to, approve, should they. I think it's July 10th would be their next meeting.
Okay.
So if you want to table it and you want further numbers, we can pull it back or you can approve it. It is year to year, so that can be adjusted as well next year. It's
won't be here.
totally your option. Well,
Yeah. I mean, I would be in favor of just doing a little bit more look into the finances behind one of the SROs, but I would probably roll with whatever the rest of the commissioners decide too. I don't want to hold it up either, so.
So that 35 is to cover for 75% of that officer's salary because 25% of the year they are not in school.
I think that's what the calculations would be. I'm not sure. Donna would probably have the
Just
better.
roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've never really dug into it and figured, because it's been 25,000 for years.
But if it's 84,000, 75% of that is,
Other municipalities do hourly, and then that kind of offsets when there's overtime, for school events and everything, then the school is the one that bears that burden rather than.
We did kick around having the officers clock in when they're at school functions and get a better number that way. That was part of the negotiations, but they decided, or we decided as a collective group, both their side and ours, just have a base pay versus trying to track, which would be all right to do. We can still do that and then charge them out whatever the rate is, whatever the time the officers were spent in the schools.
I mean, we don't have a whole lot of extra money to give away, but
No.
I do want to support the program. I think I love that we have officers in the school every single day. My own kid's affected by Newton Bible School, and so I think it's a great program. I just want to figure out how the city can be a little bit more
Sure.
benefit from the financial part of it, but
Right.
So my
not benefit,
figures here
but break even.
that Suzanne's come up with, I guess my phone's hidden over here, is 54% is what they're paying of the 75%.
Okay.
At this amount.
Yes, they're
Or
not-
an entry level.
They're just a little over half of the 75%.
Now, this is entry level. All these guys aren't entry level, but that's
Right.
Yeah.
what we want.
So 84,000 is the entry level. Yeah.
That includes benefits.
I would make a motion to table it until we get more information on it and spend more time talking about it. Maybe, I don't know when we do that, but,
It's up to you, whatever you want to do.
okay.
We can look into it and
We can
do
sure
some
do.
figuring and.
Yeah.
We will also convey that to your partners at the school district, just so that they know we're not just sitting on it, because I know their fiscal year starts July 1.
Right.
So I think that's part of it, too. They want to be sure they're budgeting for it appropriately.
So I think there's an open motion.
Correct, to table it, yeah, until a future meeting. we can-
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will table it. Item number 9, we're going to consider a conveyance of a sanitary sewer utility easement dedication in Reserve GC4 at Sand Creek Station. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners, this is a little bit different kind of deal, but this is following the Sand Creek Station 5th Edition plat approval. This is on the what would be the far northwest corner of that plat. It abuts the existing golf course Sand Creek Station Edition plat. And there's a little piece that's shown on the screen in gray and is described in this easement, where we need to be able to take sanitary sewer through here to serve this area. And because the golf course plat calls out a reserve that is this GC4 reserve, it says that we can put utilities within this reserve if they are confined to an easement. So we would like to confine it to an easement. We're asking you to give yourself an easement, but just for ease of us in the engineering world, we're asking for the easement to be described so that the sanitary sewer can be within that reserve, and it would remain within the easement.
So please give yourself permission for staff to build within your own easement, is what we're asking, basically. It's already depicted upon the maps, but we just need a formal approval on it.
Yeah, I see it.
It's a little sliver.
It's a little sliver.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to give ourselves an easement.
I'll ease on into that second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes.
Thank you.
And that brings us to Citizens Forum, and the first individual is Mr. Sandate.
Good evening. My name is Celio Sandate. I live at 225 South Ash here in Newton. And I'm here tonight with a great concern that I think many of us share, but we've often turned a blind eye to it. And that is the blight of this city. Now, if we're going to attract more families, children, et cetera, we need to consider addressing the blight of this city. And the blight is in every quadrant of this city. You've seen it, I've seen it. There are landlords that don't care about their front yard. There are abandoned vehicles sitting where they shouldn't be. We need to address that. Now, years ago, we had a beautification committee in town. What happened to it, I don't know. I moved away. I went to work somewhere else. When I came back, the beautification committee was no longer, and it exists, no longer exists. We need to consider that once again, because I think that they did a good job when they were in operation. To get a handle on the blight of the city, I contacted the city attorney's office to try to get a handle on the state ordinance that the environmental officer of this city follows and uses to deal with the issue. Unfortunately, Mr. Cook, who's a paralegal in that office, sent me a document entitled Protection of Water Courses and Drainage Easements. Well, that isn't what I wanted. I wanted to read the ordinance dealing with weeds. So I contacted Mr. Lewis, who is the Environmental Control Officer. And he was graciously enough to send me Ordinance 4223 of the state, which addresses weeds. But in talking to Mr. Lewis, I found out that his hands are tied to a certain degree in that when he gets a complaint from the neighbors because their neighbor's house looks a mess, he sends a letter. And that landowner has 30 days to address that violation. 30 days? Come on. Where is the enforcement that we need to get a handle on the blight of this city? So that landlord has actually 29 days to cut their grass, if that's the issue, or get rid of the car that's been sitting there in their front yard, et cetera, et cetera. We've all traveled around and we've experienced different ordinances in different areas. I want to cite the New Mexico ordinance. Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Los Lunas, and Bosque Farms. They have an ordinance with teeth in that they actually have a roving environmental patrol that goes around the neighborhoods, identifies the blight, and cites that individual or that owner, cites them and gives them not 30 days to correct it, a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, that roving patrol comes back, sees if they haven't done it, then they'll cut the weeds, if that's the case, or move that abandoned car or whatever, and then they will bill that owner. Now, if that owner doesn't pay that bill, they put a lien on the property. That is teeth. That is what enforcement is all about. That's what we need in Newton. We need some kind of roving patrol that will go around and cite these individuals whose property they don't care about. They don't care about their neighborhood. If we want people to move to Newton, we need to address that issue. I think, because I know that it's a very short moment that I have to speak on this issue. I do want to thank the commission for at least letting me get it off my chest. And I hope that you think about an ordinance that will do something to help these individuals who don't care about their property, don't care about their neighborhood, don't care about their neighbor. Let's see if we can do something to remedy the situation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Celio. I will tell you that I was just speaking to Rod tonight about this very thing, and we both talked about the necessity to look at this and get tough on this because there's some things we're tired. And I will also tell you that in the Valentine home, my husband can attest to this, this is discussed almost on a daily basis. So I'm,
and maybe we can get an ordinance with teeth.
I'm so glad you spoke because you basically took all the thoughts and the words out of my mouth. So thank you.
Okay, the next individual is Reggie Cooper.
I think Suzanne wanted to say something.
Just before he starts, I would want to just correct one thing. If, when Jerry's sending out notices, if it's for weeds, I believe it's a 5-day response, and then he can cite the property at that point if they haven't. If it's inoperable vehicle or housing or something, then it's the 30-day, so it's a little bit different. Just wanted to clarify on that.
The letter I got was 10 days.
10 days?
Yeah.
What was it for, though?
Oh, I had an alley that was closed. I'm not going to go into that because I'm here for it, but I had to clean up a compost pile and some stuff behind my fence in the alley. It's a closed alley. No traffic can go down it, and I responded and took care of it.
Sure.
So.
So my point is, every item has a little bit different day timeframe for response.
My
That's
name
by
is,
ordinance.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
My name's Reggie Cooper. I live at 928 South Ash Street. I, too, have problems of thinking about how our community looks. I was with Mr. Sandate when we made a quick drive-through around the neighborhood. And I'd like to give each of the commissioners the note of those items that we found. So if that's possible, I'll give them to you.
I'll send it down.
Also, I don't have a smartphone. I figured out a long time ago that a smartphone and a dumb person doesn't work, so I don't do that. But I have a photograph of one area. It's an 8 by 10. There's an address listed on it. This has been one of the places that's really a terrible place for people that are coming through our community to look at. We don't really need this. I support everything that Mr. Sandante had to say. We were together when we looked at these places. I'll hand this to the City Commission if you choose to look at it.
Yeah.
It's to continue with my concerns, we traveled about 35, 40 minutes around the locations in Newton that's on that list. And it was appalling what we came across. Not hideaway places, but areas of main travel for our community. One place was 919 East First Street. There's a truck sitting in the front yard with an engine in the back of the truck and weeds growing up around the truck. I don't think it's drivable, but it's there and we haven't done anything about it. A number of years ago, before 2018, I took my concerns about this to one of the city leaders and said, I know there's probably an issue about staff not having enough people to do that kind of stuff, but there are those of us in the community that would be willing, I for one, would be willing to be part of whatever it would take to make those changes and be part of resolving these issues. I think there's answers there, but we just haven't taken it serious. When we did this drive around, I listed 10 places that were obnoxious. One place, the weeds were 48 inches high with an abandoned vehicle. A vehicle up on jack stands is not one that's being used. These weren't places that were out of the way. You can look at that and say, is it 500 South Ash Street, 319 Southwest 5th Street, tall weeds, it's everything. One of the places that was really bad was the one you've got the photograph of, is 422 West 2nd Street. Weeds and junk, a trailer full of trash sitting in the parking between the curb and the sidewalk. The grass was high enough you couldn't really see too much of the junk that was in the trailer. That's a photograph I've sent up, had you guys to look at. That's not something that we should be looking at, none of us. And so my concern is this isn't the way the city of Newton should look. Our children, ours, mine, my wife's, moved away from Newton, and they come home to visit. One of them said to me just not too long ago, Dad, what's happened to Newton? It looks terrible. City departments that have jurisdiction over the mess that they need to be proactive, share information with each other and there isn't any reason different departments can't tell who's ever in charge. Hey, this is what we see. I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm sure that most departments are going to say, well, you know, we're short-staffed and don't have enough people since COVID to do this kind of stuff. But these places were there long before COVID. This has been an ongoing process for years. But I can remember a time when I patrolled the streets and we shared that information with different departments. It was easy to do. All you have to do is write a note or make a phone call. I see city vehicles moving about, and one of the things we need to do, you need to do, is when I see employees working in the city of Newton, I thank them for what they've done. There was a group that was working on the underpass or south end of town towards the big church out there. The grass was this high, whatever you want to call it. It was growing. It was cleaned up today, and I stopped and thanked them for the work that they did. It looks great. We don't need to look that way. It's not just landowners and people who rent and landlords. The city needs to look around what they need to take care of. And when something is parked, in my opinion, now I'm not out there anymore like that, but if something is parked from the curb, the sidewalk to the curb, where stuff is so, and you see the picture, the stuff is so thick and tall, and there's a trailer sitting there, and that's been there for a long time. I mean, because I've seen it before. Is that the landowner's property to deal with, or does the city have a little more power over that kind of property? I guess that's my question. That property that's from the sidewalk to the curb, that shouldn't take so long to get cleaned up, I wouldn't think. Anyway, I am one of these kind of people that I'm concerned about our community. There are people in this city right now, I believe, and I'm one of them, who'd be willing to help do whatever it would take to try to get something started, as Celio had talked about. We need to think about working together and making this city the beautiful place it was. That I remember when I moved to Newton, Kansas, and you're going to laugh about this, but I moved to Newton, Kansas in 1956. And I came from a town of 900 people, and when I moved here, I thought I was on the other side of the world. So because it was so different. But it was, I never saw what I see today. Never saw it. So my hopes are that we will act, be forceful, be within the law of telling people this is what really needs to happen. there's ways to do it. Celio's addressed it. I'm addressing it. There's people that are willing to put the time in to help change it, and I'm one of them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Reggie. Next individual is Garth Mock.
Thanks for your time tonight. I'm Garth Mock. I live at 420 West Broadway in Newton. I've lived here for almost 40 years myself. My family's been in Newton for about 100 years. My 90-year-old mom graduated from Newton High in 1950, and my 4 kids graduated from Newton High as well. So I am an advocate for Newton. I love Newton. This is where I've chosen to live my life. I plan to stay here. Probably like a lot of us, when we open Facebook and look at some of the posts from citizens of Newton, and it doesn't matter how the posts start, it could be an announcement about something or anything else. It is just amazing how quickly it degrades, and these people just complain about so many things about Newton and the city and all this stuff, and you think, where in the world does this stuff come from? And it hurts those of us who like Newton and think differently about that. I want to tell you about a story that happened to me this last week regarding the sanitation department, and maybe some of the things that people deal with, maybe this could be the root of some of those comments and those feelings about the city. So I've got 2 properties that I want to talk to. I have 2 City of Newton utility bills. I have one at my house, 420 West Broadway. I also have a 3-plex on Poplar. And many of you probably know when you have a multifamily property with a single water meter, you are charged for the number of units. So for that 3-plex, regardless of how many people are living there, the city charges me for 3 water rates, 3 sewer surcharges, 3 refuse. Refuse is it about $24 a month? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I pay the $24 at my house. I pay about $75 at the 3-plex. Again, regardless of how many people live there. It's really more trash than what we need, but that's the way it happens. So basically, I am entitled to a total of 8 dumpsters. If I wanted them, 6 at the duplex or the 3-plex and 2 at my house. That's too many. I mean, I don't want to pay for that many, but that's just the way it is. So that's how many I pay for. I had 3 at the 3-plex. I have 2 single guys that live there. They might put out a dumpster maybe once a month. Other than that, nothing. I have an empty unit there that's been empty for a while because I've been redoing it. So there's that other dumpster that just sits there and doesn't get used, even though I pay for it. So I thought, you know, once in a while at my house, I might need another dumpster. So I took that one over to my house. And honestly, it doesn't get used that much. It just mostly sits there. But the last few weeks, I've been out of town on Thursday night. So 3 weeks ago, I didn't put any dumpster out. 2 weeks ago, I didn't put any dumpster out. Last week, I actually needed all 3 dumpsters to take out there. So I set my 3 dumpsters out on Friday morning. When I got home Friday afternoon, there were only 2 dumpsters there, and I thought, oh my gosh, what happened to my 3rd dumpster? I thought I knew, and I called the service center, and I talked to the lady that works there that I kind of know, and she kind of knew what happened to it, and she was kind of embarrassed, but she said yes. The trash collector called and said, hey, does this guy pay for 3 dumpsters? Because he's got 3 dumpsters. Long story short, they checked with the supervisor. He realized that one of them went to Poplar and the other 2 were mine for the house. And so, you know, most of the time, you kind of get upset with the city for, you know, things that just kind of happen. But this upset me because staff had to actually look that up. Then somebody at the service center had to get into a truck, drive across town to my house, pick up the dumpster, take it back to my house, my place at Poplar, because that's where it belonged. Now, I'm paying for all these dumpsters, so really, what difference does it make if it's at one property or the other? It's not really costing the city anymore, whether they pick it up here or there. I don't understand. So, you know, of course, I called and they said, well, he's already gone for the day. He'll call you Monday morning. To his credit, he called very early Monday morning and we talked about it. I said, is this in the ordinance? Is this policy? What's going on? And he explained, well, he said, I'll have to look. And he actually called back and he seemed to be fairly giddy to find out that he thought it was in the ordinance and he could explain it that way, that it was part of the ordinance. And I've read the ordinance. It's pretty sketchy, but I could see how he saw that. But here's the point. You know, there's really no reason for the city to fight that fight that I can see, you know? And I'm a little bit embarrassed because there could be 200 times at least that I could come in here to the city commission meeting and praise city staff. I mean, the staff is great. Everybody that you talk to, you know, kind of the rank and file, they're awesome people. I mean, they're our friends. You know, they're people we go to church with. I've got a cousin that works for this city, you know, people that our kids play ball together. I mean, these are our neighbors and our friends. They're great people. But why is it when all of us probably in this room, I know you guys do and I do, we advocate for the city, you know? Why is it that we work so hard? I mean, there's so many people here, the golf tournament, people work so hard to make the city a great place. And then there's these policies or things that happen that should just be, you know, set aside, or why is that a fight that people fight? Because it makes a huge difference for the person who's on the receiving end of that. Again, this one time made me move more to the city commission meeting than the 200 good experiences that I've had with city staff. And so when we are all advocating for the city of Newton, and then we have, you know, persons or policies that are working against us, why do we let that happen? You know, this is a quality of life issue that could be so easy to fix, and the cost is zero tax dollars, really. You know, you think about all the other things we do for quality of life, you know, the new pool and so many other things that cost a lot of money. And this is just maybe a little bit of retraining, a little bit of an attitude adjustment. You know, I had a business one time, because really government is a service industry when it comes down to it. City government especially is providing service to their citizens. Why don't they treat us like they're trying to provide good service? Most all of them do. I had a business one time that was a service business here in Newton. We didn't have any competition. We kind of have a monopoly. I told my people, the last thing I want you to do is treat one of my customers like we have a monopoly. I want you to treat them like there are tons of people that are competing against us. And why can't the city? I mean, I know it's a monopoly. I can't go somewhere else to get trash service. But just a little bit of courtesy would go a long way. And that's easy for us to do. And it's frustrating when those of us are trying and trying to advocate, and then you see the people on Facebook and you're thinking, where does that come from? Why do they think that? And then you experience something like that and you think, okay, well, I can see that. It's not necessary. Thank you.
Thanks, Garth. Thank you, Garth. Okay, next individual up is Greg Yutzy.
Hello, Commissioners. Greg Yutzy, 311 Victoria Court. I'm here to talk about trash too, but a little bit different concern. As you already know, in the spring of 2022, Harvey County chose to close their recycling facility due to an decreased market for recyclables and dramatic increases in tipping fees. So As Newton's recycling moved through the county's facilities, you had to look for alternatives. After you and your staff considered multiple options for recycling, you chose to give each household 2 options. The first option, no recycling. Put all of our trash and recyclables in the same trash bin for pickup by the city, and at the same monthly cost of $24.37. Second option was for recycling. Have Nicely Brothers pick up our recyclables at an additional cost of $37.80 per quarter and still pay the city $24.37 per month for trash. To break this down, it would be $36.97 per month. I wasn't happy with these options. I don't think many of you were either, but I understood you had to make some hard decisions, and the reasoning behind your decisions were probably sound. Now, today, we learn North Newton has recently contracted with Nicely Brothers for trash and recycling, and North Newton has given their citizens 2 options. The first is no recycling, and all trash, recyclables go in the same trash bin for $18 a month versus our $24.37 a month. They have another option for recycling for an additional $7 of monthly charge to the $18 charge, for a total of $25 a month versus our $36.97 a month. I believe this development gives you and your staff an opportunity to go back, research, investigate other options for outside trash and recycling services. If Nicely or another trash service company would be willing to provide these services, it could possibly reduce our monthly costs. Here again, if it could be a big cost savings to the city, because you could eliminate your trash trucks. That would be a huge savings. I hear you're having difficulty filling positions for the city. You know, the employees that operate the trash trucks, if this all worked out, they could be moved to other positions in the city. I understand there's differences between Newton and North Newton. I may be trying to compare apples to oranges here, but I believe this could be a good opportunity, and I ask that you open a discussion and maybe consider an RFP or whatever may be needed to start the process. No. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next individual is John Van Meter.
Your Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, John Van Meter, 1109 Wedgewood Place here in Newton. And just before I talk about the subject I came to visit with you, I must commend Reggie and his counterpart regarding the lawns in Newton. We've been blessed with rain here the past month. The weeds and the grass have grown. I encourage Jerry Lewis, the compliance officer, to enforce the statutes that we have. And speaking of recently, my wife's mother lives at a Kansas Christian home, and so when we go over to see her, we go the back roads on Kansas Avenue to, well, there's a White House in the corner where we turn, and then we turn north and turn right, past several yards. My wife Shelley says, you know, we noticed that the yards were overgrown and the curbs, and a few of them hadn't even been mowed last fall because we saw them through the winter months. So let's just write down these addresses and I'll go to the city hall and see if we can't find some relief to have the yards mowed and decent. Visited with Denise, and she pointed me to Jerry, and it was pretty comical. I had a list of probably 12 addresses that needed attention and needed mowed, and shared with him my concerns that they were just looked awful. bless his heart, he says, "Do you need a full-time job? Driving around Newton looking at these yards and we can get it done. You know, we go through the process, we send a registered letter, landowner or homeowner, be it a rental property. But it can be addressed, and if we go through the right channel and just visit with Jerry, and I would encourage Denise or staff to reach out to Reggie and forgive me, I forgot another fellow's name already.
Celio.
Yes, but it is an issue. But to my point, asked to speak with you this evening, I was curious to know if the council and/or staff has developed or proceeded or gained traction on the utility average billing program that we discussed a couple months ago. If perhaps that is still in the works.
Yeah, we found out that our software does do that. We don't do it for anyone at this time. It takes a little more, we'll have to work out a plan. But we had some concerns, and I think I've talked to some of the commissioners, that water may not be the utility that can best be served by a level pay from a lot of people. It changes every month according to your use, and people leave all of a sudden, and we have lots of people who run off and don't pay, and it's just a little harder to control than maybe your gas bill, which is pretty level all year. That was our concern with going to the level pay system.
Well, I understand your concern, but you know, the other utilities have that same issue and same problem. Perhaps it'd be so simple as to call Evergy and/or Kansas Gas and see what their policies are for those that move in, move out. But if it's based on a one-year program, then you have those that leave within 3 months or 6 months or whatever the number aren't eligible for the levelized payment program in the first place because you have to establish your usage in a year's time. Just a thought. But thank you. I'm glad to hear that it's still under consideration. I encourage you to move forward with it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, this time, let's go around the horn. Mr. Cry. I don't have anything.
Well, I am really glad that Reggie and Celio spoke. I thank you, Mr. Mock and Mr. Yetsey and John. It's good to have our citizens come forward and share as you have done and as they have done. I will say with regard to the concerns expressed by Reggie and Celio, having an additional person with a Jerry has been an item of discussion in the past. And last year, it's something that we took off the menu, if you will, because it was going to mean probably, I don't know, $1 or $500,000, somewhere in that area of an increase. But I would advocate for that because we have way too many issues that we can't even, and Jerry can't get a handle on every single one of those. And I really liked the idea of having somebody go out and doing exactly what was suggested, working off of a grid, if you will, like our sewer and streets are set up on a grid, and this area is done this year and this one, having that individual just get his or her marching orders from City Hall and out they go, and this is the items that they're looking at. I think that that's a very good idea, and again, Rod and I talked a little bit about this before the meeting, and I would like to say I could be very hopeful about something like that. I would agree, you want people to come to this community, we have to be willing to admit that we have areas in this community that need to be cleaned up. Just to say you love Newton and Newton's great and all that, and not acknowledge the issues that we have to deal with is dishonest. So we need to deal with those areas, and I am certainly would be an advocate for that. So thank you for coming forward, and thank you for those two gentlemen who've left. I appreciate them coming forward as well. That's all, and thank you to our staff. You always prepare us well, and you work hard on our behalf to bring us all that information that we need as we work on. So thank you for everything.
Speaking of information, we have a lot of it for you come 8 o'clock in the morning. So hopefully we'll see you there for our budget work session.
No, sir.
The only thing I might add to Commissioner Valentine's point is that we appreciate our partners in the community, and we are a small but mighty staff, and we have been for a number of years. And just please recall that there is a City of Newton app you can get on your smartphone, and if you're around town and you see something that needs a code compliance check or a pothole or something like that, you can turn it in, and we will respond immediately to that, very, very immediately. So, just that would be a good opportunity to push out that app opportunity again, or you can always call the main number at City Hall, which is 284-6020, and give us an address, and you can do it anonymously, that's fine, and we will handle it. So we appreciate that. But again, the more help we have, the better, especially this time of year after we've had some rain events.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yes, excuse me, one more reminder on fireworks. I know we've had a number of emails that I sent some to you all already on inquiries. I know you are having inquiries. Sales began on the 27th, and discharge begins on, help me remember here, on the 1st. 30th, excuse me, 30th, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, and then there are some time frame limitations on those. It is posted on the city's Facebook page and the website if you would like more details.
Yeah, I have two things. July 7th through the 9th is a big weekend here in Newton. July 7th and 8th is Sand Creek Summer Days. It's just Friday and Saturday this year. Or is there something on Thursday?
Just Friday and Saturday.
It's Friday and Saturday this year.
Thursday night, your button will get you into the Rebels.
That's it,
Rebels
yeah.
game.
The Rebels game on the 6th, but our families enjoyed Sand Creek Summer Days every year, and so looking forward to another great year this year, so just everybody. And then the 7th, 8th, and 9th, which is the same weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Roger Gillespie Tournament. Actually, it would be just the 8th and, 7th, 8th, and 9th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the Roger Gillespie Tournament out at the new ball fields and existing ball fields. And so I was just thinking how best to summarize both of these events. There will be lots of food trucks.
Yeah.
So go out and support and enjoy. Newton will have a lot of activities that weekend around town to go out and be a part of. So it's still baseball season.
It's also car season, so Newton Cars in the Park is Saturday, so.
Car season.
Oh.
It's always car season.
Saturday, starting what time?
I don't have the time. When I
think
have
I
my
saw
coffee, I'll
that.
be out there.
Be there
Probably in
early.
the morning.
In the morning.
Be there early. Well, I look forward to our session tomorrow morning, and I'm sure an extra pot of coffee will be brewed.
You betcha.
We are adjourned.